Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for March 9th, 2017. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. We've seen a quiet, steady pullback here from the recent highs in the ES. We continue to make a move toward the previous week's low. This is something we talked about earlier in the week, that if we were going to reject off the previous close here, we could see a push down into 57.5, which is the previous week's low. Maybe even a little bit lower, 23.50, before we see some sort of signs that this thing is going to return back up a little bit. We still remain in a very powerful uptrend, so this little bitty pullback is not a big deal at the moment. Anytime you have a price discovery phase and you see a major blow off top like this, the tendency is to pull back, find a low, bounce back up, and establish some sort of range. You can see a little bit of a balanced profile that's beginning to develop here. That could be the path here. Again, we're going to see how much lower we can go, but this thing has been very quietly pushing lower. It's not a fall away, sell off type of thing. So you have to be very, very patient up here. Still very, very tight ranges overall. The overnight range right now, 7.25 points in the ES as we head into RTH. Here's a look at the intraday time frame right here. On an intraday basis, you can see that price had been trading within a wider range. Eventually broke that range to the downside and attempted to reestablish back within the range, and then later on falling back down again. So right here we have support 59.5, short-term key level. Look at these highs right here. Every time price bounces, it's a lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. Not able to even get back to 74s yesterday. That's a nice little LVN there. So every time we bounce, likely to see some selling pressure back down as this thing continues to push quietly toward 57.5 and perhaps into 23.50. Let's take a look at crude oil. Crude had a significant sell-off in the previous session, something that we've been gearing up for since last week. And you can see right here, I mentioned last week that at the top of the range here, we had just sat there for several days and couldn't get going to the upside. And I mentioned after doing that for so long, you usually see a move to the bottom of the range. But I was forecasting 51.71 as a nice little target down here, and then to start to look for signs of rejection to bring it back up. And so yesterday pre-market, what I mentioned was we had a failure to see acceptance above this 53.60, and that led to weakness. So what I mentioned yesterday was look for a pullback into 52.90 to 53 for a shot at selling this thing into 51.70. Price got into 52.87, 3 ticks from our zone, and sold off hard and dropped into 49.90s, 50 evens. Big time move. It was a big time move, and this day right here encompassed about 300% of average daily range. So a major, major move. Even this morning, a pullback, a high, and a sharp drop to the recent low, and we've now gotten into 48.79. So a major, major move. One thing we mentioned in the monthly market outlook here recently was the fact that this thing was so tightly coiled up here. If it doesn't get going above 55.50 soon, we might be making a move back toward 46.69, which is composite VPOC, with a shot to rotate even lower. We have significant support that comes into play in the 43s. So this is a big time move right here. We'll see how this thing continues to play out. One level that I'm going to be watching is the 49.95s for signs that this thing might start to work its way back up. But until then, we're still trending downward. Still got to be able to sell the pullbacks here on an intraday basis until proven otherwise. So looking at the intraday chart, you can see how this thing sold off significantly the previous session. Right up here, that's that 52.87, so price rallies up to that level, rejects hard, comes back, lower high off the open, and this thing sells off hard. So a very, very nice move right off of our zone. Now we see that down here, after the move, we're establishing a new range to do business. So this is a new little range down here. Look to fade the edges. If price comes into 49.60s or toward VWAP, it could be an opportunity to sell it back down. If price comes down here to this low and cannot establish below 48.80, then again, it's a push back up with a downward bias. All right, let's take a look here at gold futures. Looking at gold, we've had a steady sell-off as well. If we look at this thing in a higher time frame, For the most part, we've sold off from recent highs, 1263.20, which is a target of ours. We were targeting that level as our primary target, as our final major primary target after this major bounce, right? And it got right into it. And I mentioned that on this pullback, we might be able to squeeze out a little bit more here, but this was the real target. And the market rejected hard off of it. We've seen a big time roll down. We're now within striking distance of 1200. One thing I mentioned to our group yesterday is that right now this thing continues to trend lower, but pushing back below 1220 is very, very important. And the inability to get back above that zone opens the door to pushing all the way back into 1180. So we could see more weakness toward 1180 if price cannot reestablish itself back above 1220 soon. So right now, still a downtrending market, pullbacks to be defended with the potential to see 1180 if 1220 doesn't give it back up. So let's take a look here at the intraday chart. On an intraday basis, again, trending downward this entire time. Look at this aggressive trend. Every time price pulls back, it's a selling opportunity. Here's the previous session's low offered so far. Right now, holding off the low. So any pullback into this zone, or perhaps even into the LVN here at 1211s, this was an area I mentioned yesterday to defend for our traders. And since then, it hit 1211s, 1211.5, and dropped right into 1202. So very solid move. So if we come into this area or 1211s again, that could be a zone to sell for a shot at new lows and perhaps a push into 1200 and below. All right, let's take a look lastly at, now let's go ZB. ZB here had a major continuation to the downside and hit our significant downside key support level, 147.12. Major support level. I could zoom out for the next, for the last couple of years, and you're going to see that 147.12 has held steady every single time. Very, very powerful moves off that zone have been seen, and now we're right on it again. However, this is what I've been mentioning this entire time. If we were looking to defend this absorption signature right here, and as bulls were coming in to defend and defend and defend, whenever they failed here, this obviously leads to some selling pressure, but it could lead to much more selling pressure ahead. So this is a big time key level here, 147.12. The market is pausing here momentarily as it is support. But anytime, these big bulls get their stops run here, the potential is for much more weakness. So this is a zone that I'd be cautious on. It's obviously a very key support level, so bulls have defended it the last couple of days, and that could lead to at least a bounce back toward value, which would be 149.24. If the price does bounce into this area after taking it offered, I would believe that bears would want to come in and defend for a shot lower. The next key level down is going to be 146. So right now, potential to see a bounce. Any bounce into that previous support could be a selling opportunity for new lows. That's just a little bit of swing directional ideas there. Now, if we look at the intraday chart, you can see 147.12 continues to be a very nice area to do business here. Price pushes down below it the previous session and bounces. We've come down in pre-market trading again and bounced. So this 149.12 is still offering short-term opportunities to buy off of. Anywhere in this zone, look for an opportunity to bring it back up. Now, if price gets up to the recent high, 148.04, again, that would be the upper end of the range here in a kind of a downtrending market. So we could see this thing just fade the edges back and forth. All right, well, let's see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you soon.